In spring 1989, Beijing's Tiananmen Square became the epicenter of a massive pro-democracy movement. It began after the death of Hu Yaobang, a reformist Communist Party leader, on April 15, 1989, when mourning students gathered demanding political reform. Fueled by frustration over inflation, corruption, and limited freedoms, the crowds quickly grew. By mid-May, about 1 million people filled Tiananmen Square. Students, workers, and ordinary citizens united in hopes for change. As the protesters' numbers swelled, they grew bolder. Students started a hunger strike in May, which galvanized sympathy across China and sparked solidarity protests in over 400 cities. The protesters even built a 10-meter Goddess of Democracy statue in the square as a symbol of their cause. China's leadership, alarmed by the unrest, declared martial law on May 20th and mobilized some 300,000 troops to Beijing. For weeks, citizens in the capital blocked the army's advance by rallying in the streets. But on the night of June 3rd, the order came to clear the square by dawn. Troops and tanks finally stormed into central Beijing, opening fire on the crowds of protesters and bystanders. The crackdown was brutal. Hundreds, possibly thousands, were killed in the streets leading to Tiananmen Square. On June 5th, the morning after the massacre, an unforgettable act of defiance unfolded. An unknown man, later dubbed Tank Man, stood alone in front of a column of tanks, bringing them to a halt. His image was captured on film and became a global symbol of courage and resistance, although his identity and fate remain unknown to this day. In the aftermath, the Chinese government arrested thousands of suspected protesters and punished dissenters. Reformist officials deemed sympathetic to the movement, such as Party General Secretary Zhao Ziyang, were purged from power. Beijing authorities labeled the protests a counter-revolutionary riot and imposed a blanket of silence over the events. Discussing June 4th, 1989 became taboo in China. The topic remains one of the most heavily censored in the country. Even the term Tiananmen Square or the date June 4th is scrubbed from the internet, sometimes replaced with code words like May 35th to evade filters. Though the Communist Party's crackdown crushed the movement, the legacy of Tiananmen Square endures. Internationally, it prompted outrage. Western nations imposed sanctions and arms embargoes on China, and the Tank Man image still inspires people around the world as a symbol of fearless resistance. Inside China, however, decades of censorship have largely erased the massacre from public memory. New generations grow up barely aware that 1 million of their countrymen once stood up in Tiananmen Square, only to be silenced in bloodshed. The June 4th incident remains a somber reminder of the cost of demanding democracy under an authoritarian regime and the bravery of those who dared to do so.